So good morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and I welcome you to the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast Sunday morning celebration. And if anybody listening or watching has never been to a Center for Spiritual Living before, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all belief and lifestyles, whoever you are and wherever you are, wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. And so this morning to begin, my wife Becky, a practitioner emeritus, will pray us in, and Carol Gabika will follow with the spiritual reading.
So I just invite everybody to turn within to that place of the Most High. And just take a couple of deep breaths in, releasing that. And as we're releasing whatever it is that brought us here this morning, all the activities, just releasing everything and just being here in this moment of stillness. And in this stillness, I'm knowing my oneness in divine spirit, that it flows through each and every person in the seen and unseen. It's right here, this divine power that is ever present. And so I'm knowing that this divine power is right here this morning, unfolding itself in divine perfection in this morning's meeting, this morning's service. It is expressing itself so clearly through Reverend Dr. Ron's message. And that as we open up our hearts and our minds, as we listen to it, that it deepens our consciousness. It anchors our awareness in spirit, in God, in Allah, whatever this power that you wish to call. It is right here, right now, bringing us together in love and in light. And as we open up our hearts, this love is reaching out to everyone else. It expands in this universe. It is the light in the darkness. It is right here now, expressing the love. And so, knowing that this is the truth, I just release this prayer into the law, into the love, just knowing that it is taking place in our hearts, right here and now. And so it is.
You are not broken, maybe bending. Willows laugh at us in the wind as we fight to right ourselves. They bend and smile. It is their given to make those amazing sounds. Their song is their contribution to the melody played by the wind. Feel it in your hair. Feel it against your skin. Feel it in your soul. You are not broken. Enjoy the bending as the Spirit teaches you the song of the willows.
Wow, thank you, Carol. As always, you write beautiful messages. So good morning again. The title of my message today, in case you haven't gotten it, is You Are Not Broken. And I want to begin with two quotes. The first one is from a lady named Brianna West. And she wrote, "One day, the mountain that's in front of you will be so far behind you, it will be barely visible in the distance. But the person you become in learning to get over it, that will stay with you forever. And that is the point of the mountain. And the second quote, you're going to have to think about a while. It's from an old Yiddish saying. And here it is. To a worm in horseradish, the whole world is horseradish. You know, there are many different definitions of broken, such as damaged, not working properly, or made weak or infirm. And I'm sure, I would bet that everybody that listens to this message will at one time or another have felt broken, because life can wear us down. But the good news is there's something within us that transcends our human experience, something that goes beyond what our ego labors good, bad, or failure. It's that divine presence that's always with us. You know, perhaps you've suffered a major trauma in your life. I know I have. Or maybe you have a friend or know somebody that has. Those losses can sometimes bring us to our knees. We may experience anger, grief, pain, or even a sense of hopelessness. But when that happens, we are not broken. We're dealing with life's issues. And how we deal with these situations determines the quality of our life. If we've lived a life filled with pain or loss or abuse, we could come to believe that that's all there is. But the fact is that no matter what we've experienced, we can rise above it. We can choose, we can make the choice to believe in our brokenness or to believe in our wholeness. Every moment of our life, we have a choice. That's how the universe works. Perhaps Ralph Waldo Emerson said it best. He said, "'Tis not in the high stars alone, nor in the cup of budding flowers, nor in the redbreast's mellow tone, nor in the bow that shines in flowers, but in the mud and scum of things, something always shines." So he's telling us it's not just in the good times, but in the tough times, there's something within us that always shines. Even in the darkest moments, Spirit is always with us. Ernest Holmes wrote, "God is always God. No matter what our emotional storm or what our objective situation may be, there is always hidden in our being that which has never been violated." You know, Holmes talked about and wrote about Jesus. And he said, you know, Jesus was convinced that the universe responded to him. He had no doubt. There was no question in his mind. And he once told the man whose servant was ill, he said, "Go home and you'll find that your servant is well." And Holmes says the power responded to Jesus because he never doubted and because he lived in harmony with it. Holmes said that the answer for all of us, he said, you know, the answer is so simple that most people won't believe it. The answer is simply belief and faith built upon the assurance that Spirit responds to us according to our acceptance. So he's saying when we believe, when we have the faith and belief that Spirit responds to us according to our acceptance, it always will. Pema Chodron is a Buddhist nun, and she wrote that thinking that we can have lasting pleasure and avoid pain is what causes us to suffer. And she said she came to Buddhism because one day she was sitting in her backyard enjoying a cup of tea, and she heard her husband's car coming. It was riding along the stones on their driveway, and he walked into the backyard, and without anything else, he just said to her, "I'm having an affair, and I want a divorce." And her response was to pick up a rock and throw it at him. And she said later in her life, she reflected on it, and she said, actually, he saved my life. She tried, she said, to go back to the old her, to find some place of comfort, some kind of security, some familiar resting place. But she couldn't do it. She couldn't find it. She came to realize her old self had to go. And so she put this sign on her wall, which I think I've talked about before. This is a sign she keeps still on her wall. Only to the extent we expose ourselves over and over to annihilation can that which is indestructible in us be found. And she writes about a friend who was dying of AIDS. And her friend told her, I didn't want to do this. I hated it. I was terrified of this. But it turns out this illness has been my greatest gift. Now, every moment is so precious to me. My whole life means so much more to me. Something so horrible and so scary turned into a gift for him. You know, most of us, when we have really difficult situations, we try to run, we try to escape, but sooner or later, we all meet our limit, whatever it is. There's a story about a Buddhist monk who traveled with a party of monks to a monastery that he'd never been to before. And when they get there, there's a huge, ferocious dog that's chained up. And this dog is snarling and growling at them and pushing against this chain to try to get at them. And they're walking away from it. And all of a sudden, the chain breaks and the dog charges at them. And all of the other monks froze. They were terrified in fear. But this one, he ran too, but he ran right at the dog. And the dog was so surprised, it put its tail in between its legs and it ran away. Here's the lesson in that. We can meet our match with a poodle or with a guard dog. The question is, what happens next? What happens next? The spiritual journey is about moving beyond fear. So Barbara DeAngelis tells a story that she and her husband went away on a weekend to a ropes course. And the idea behind this ropes course is to test you, to have you walk through fear. And it's like walking on a rope ladder between two poles that are 50 feet high in the ground. And it really challenges you. You're connected, obviously. And the last exercise, they did 3 or 4 exercises. The last one was to climb a sheer wall while you're attached to two other people. And it's either the three of you make it or none of you make it. And the wall is 50 feet high. Think about that. Now you're attached to two other people and they have hands that they have to grasp onto to do this. It's really, really difficult. And the day they're doing it, it's really cold. And she starts, and her two mates are way ahead of her. They're two guys, I guess, and they're stronger than she is. And eventually her hands are frozen and her fingers are frozen. And she tries and tries and tries. And she gets so high and she can't go any higher. And she's sobbing and sobbing. And the people on the ground are rooting her on. Go, Barbara, go. And her teammates are. And she can't go any further. And finally, the person that's leading it says, she's reached her limit, let her down. And when she gets down on the ground, she says to her husband who's holding her, she says, I just couldn't keep up with the others. And he whispers in her ear, honey, that's how everyone in your life feels about you. And she said it struck her that in her life, she always pushed people to try harder, to go faster, not to slow her down. And she said, I realized that people had been growing as fast as they could. And what they needed was not judgment and not disappointment. They needed love, just as the love her husband gave her when she couldn't go any higher. And she realized for herself and for all of us that wherever she got was enough. It wasn't the destination that mattered. It was the climb that made success. Let me say that again. It isn't the destination that matters. It's the climb that makes it a success. Just the act of climbing, of trying. Sharon Salzberg is also a Buddhist teacher, and she writes that there were, excuse me, there are times we wish that we could change the end of our story. You know, we lose what we care about. We become separated from somebody we love. Our bodies may fail us and we feel helpless or hurt. But what the Buddhists believe is when we feel pain, it's because of something we're attached to, something we're holding on to. When we cling, we suffer. When we learn the lessons that pain has to teach us, we can move beyond them. You know, there's a story about a bear cub that becomes separated from its mother. And a mountain lion has been following them along, waiting for this moment. And the mountain lion starts to walk at the cub. And the cub stands on its hind legs and tries to growl, but it doesn't faze the mountain lion at all. It keeps coming. And all of a sudden, it stops in its tracks, lowers its head, and turns and walks away. Because what the cub couldn't see is behind it was its mother, who was also rearing up and growling. And the lion realized couldn't take on the mother. And I share that because for you and me, that's how spirit is in our life. We can't see spirit, but it never ever moves from where you and I are. Jack Cornfield tells a story about a woman who asks him to go visit her brother in the hospital. And Cornfield goes, and this person that's in the hospital is incredibly rich. He's got his own construction company, gorgeous cars, a boat, home, vacation home, everything people could dream of. But what he also has is a tumor on his brain. And the doctors tell him without surgery, he will die in 6 weeks. And the doctors tell him, with the surgery, this tumor is in such a place in your brain that even with the surgery, if it doesn't go right, it's so delicate, you may lose your ability to read, to speak, to write, and to understand any language. Imagine that. That's your choice. Death in 6 weeks or what I just told you. And then they tell him, think about this and let us know because we want to operate in the morning. And that evening when Cornfield is with him, this fella doesn't want to speak a lot. He says, you know, this evening is precious. Just to have a drink of water means so much to me. Or to see that pigeon on the windowsill means so much. So he has the operation and he comes through and he changes his entire life. He spends more time with his family. He becomes a counselor who helps other people through cancer. He spends time in nature and he touches the people in his life with love. And Cornfield writes, at the end of life, people aren't going to ask, how big is my bank account? How many books did I write? What did I build? What they're going to say is, did I love well? Did I live fully? Did I learn to let go? Helen Keller wrote, security is mostly a superstition. It doesn't exist in nature, nor do the children of humans as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. So I want to end today by taking us through a very short Buddhist meditation. I'm going to go through it twice. Once I'll do it, and then the second time as I go through it, and it's really short, just say it with me to yourself. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. So I'll do it one more time and do it with me. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. Thank you for being here this morning. God bless you and have a great week.